Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Cities, Towns, and Counties for Trails webinar today. Our topic today is Trails, an outdoor economy's essential element. And we've got Allison Smith from Made by Mountains and Marc Wilken from Pennsylvania Wilds with us today. And I'll be turning it over to them in just a minute. But before we start, I did want to do a quick update for everyone. And I'm just going to show you a couple little slides. We've got big news here with the coalition in that we are celebrating the Great Trail State program announcements across the state. Congratulations to anyone on this call who has been announced as a grantee and award winner. We look forward to seeing your projects. And of course, we're looking forward to Great Trail State Day on October 18th. This fall, which is the third Saturday in October. And just a reminder who the coalition is. We're a statewide advocacy organization, and our goal is recurring funding for trails across the state. And we had big success with the Great Trail State program, $25 million. It was one-time funding. We're hoping to get some recurring. There's no state budget yet. We'll continue to work towards that. And we've had great success in the past also with the Great Trail State Day designation and Complete the Trails funding for our authorized state trails, as well as funding for DOT feasibility studies. And of course, North Carolina Year of the Trail, which we celebrated in 2023. We have 125 members and invite all of you who aren't on this list to please join this list. Many of you are already members. Membership support is essential and vital to our ability to be able to have a strong voice in Raleigh to advocate for recurring funding for trails that can benefit all types of trails in all counties of North Carolina. Also want y'all to tag us on any of your social posts so we can pick up and promote your trails and your stories and the things happening for you about trails. And also just sharing our upcoming Cities, Towns, and Counties for Trails meetings and webinars. We'll put that link in the chat before the webinar is over today. So we have some great topics coming up, including Great Trail State Day, America 250, resilient and sustainable trail infrastructure, and all tips and practices for developing a greenway. All right, so I will stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Allison and Marc so they can get started with their presentation. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Palmer. We'll kick off with some brief introductions. My name is Allison Smith, and I'm an Economic Recovery Corps Fellow working with the Made by Mountains Partnership over in the western third of North Carolina. So we cover the Appalachian counties of North Carolina. And I'll let Marc introduce himself.
Thanks, Allison. Greetings from Pennsylvania. You also might be hearing my dog in the background, so she says hi too. As Alan touched on, I'm also an Economic Recovery Corps Fellow. It's a program that's sponsored by the U.S. Economic Development Administration in collaboration with the International Economic Council. I know Allison's going to share a little more about that in a moment. I'm serving the Pennsylvania Wilds region in collaboration with the Pennsylvania Wilds Center for Entrepreneurship, and excited to kick things off today with everyone.
Thanks, Marc. I'm going to go ahead and screen share. It's not wanting to toggle. Give me one sec. Some slideshow. All right. All right, give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Awesome. So yeah, as Marc said, we are both fellows with the Economic Recovery Corps, and we're both in the inaugural Economic Recovery Corps cohort. This is a new program that is funded by the Economic Development Administration and is managed by the International Economic Development Council, or IEDC. And the program has placed 65 fellows with 65 host organizations throughout the country. And so like Marc mentioned, we are both fellows working locally with hosts. My host organization is Made by Mountains, and Marc's host organization is the Pennsylvania Wilds. And the overarching goal of the program is to build capacity in some of the most economically distressed areas of the country, while also developing a new generation of economic development practitioners. And I love this geographic mix pie chart at the bottom here. So 62% of fellows are serving rural communities. And I would say, with the exception of Asheville here in North Carolina and State College up where Marc is working, many of the communities that we work hand in hand with are rural. And so I find that very exciting. And so today, the topic of me and Marc's presentations are trails as an outdoor economy essential, but we really want to ground that knowledge in the spirit of collaboration. Like, yes, trails generate immense economic impact, but the collaboration necessary to get to that point cannot be underestimated, as well as the entrepreneur support really needed to activate these trails and help them live up to their full potential. So we'll be touching on some stories, some tools that focus on collaboration and economic or support for entrepreneurs. So I'm going to stop my screen share at that point, or at this point, and actually turn it back over to Marc.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Yeah, let me jump into my presentation. Everyone see my slides okay? Thumbs up. Great. I'll just jump right into it. Background on the Pennsylvania wilds. As Allison touched on it, it is a rural region, 13 county region in north central Pennsylvania. It's actually roughly the size of Massachusetts. 2 million acres of public land, larger than Yellowstone National Park, and it consists of 29 state parks, 8 state forests, 2 national wild and scenic rivers, an international dark sky park, and the largest elk herd in the Northeast. So we have an immense collection of outdoor assets, and we know part of that is the priority around stewardship, but it's also around how do we activate these spaces and drive economic growth around them. The big challenge in this region is that PA Wilds represents 25% of the state's landmass, but yet 4% of the state's population. And many of these communities are severely distressed. So we have this incredible asset. A, how do we continue to preserve it? But B, how do we incorporate it into our economic diversification plans and build economies around these resources? So the Pennsylvania Wilds sort of comes into play. It's sort of a place-based brand that was launched in the early 2000s. It was a collaboration amongst several state agencies, including the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and Department of Community and Economic Development. And together they sort of came up with this sort of symbol, the PA Wilds, as a way to both promote and identify the region, and really sort of market it and position it as a place to explore, but also a way to serve individuals to become entrepreneurs and drive business growth. The other component of this is around what they call a value chain network. How do we connect these entrepreneurs to each other, these businesses who are creating enterprises around the outdoors, but working together and resourcing them so they can be stronger and more successful. And I'll get into another slide in a few minutes around who makes up that value chain. But I just want to just super quick just jump into what a value chain is, just to give some background. This is a great, I think, definition from WealthWorks. A value chain, as defined by WealthWorks, is a network of people, businesses, organizations, and agencies addressing a market opportunity to meet demand for specific products or services, advancing self-interest while building rooted local and regional wealth. And so the idea is really to build local wealth and focus on the community sustainability and growth, trying to create a pipeline for entrepreneurs to grow and succeed, and position them in a way that they could leverage their specific product and services to meet demand. Demand in this case would be sort of the tourism market. And other, this is alternatively, a supply chain, which I'm sure many are familiar with, is more individual focused. It's really about distributing products and services versus working together in a community setting. So the WAS Cooperative, just a bit of background, is made up of industry sector businesses and resource partners. The sector businesses include artisans, creative industries and media, retailers, food and beverage, lodging, outfitters and guide services, and agricultural enterprises. And so you have this large remote region I touched on earlier. So how do we bring them together? How do we connect them to better understand their pain points? How can they become better business-to-business relationships amongst themselves? And then how do we make sure that the resource partners are serving them? So the network also includes state park officials, chambers of commerce, SBDCs, education institutions, lending institutions, and TA providers, so they can better connect with these businesses and resource them accordingly. So another component that came out of the PA Wilds initiative was to create a marketplace particularly for artisans, to essentially create a space for them to sell their products. So the PA Wild Center of Entrepreneurship partnered with the Department of PA Conservation and Natural Resources to launch what they call conservation shops. They're actually located in state parks. They're essentially brick and mortar gift shops where the PA Wild Center is working with their members from the cooperative network to provide a place for their products to be sold. 9% of the products that are at these shops are local, and some of them are actually licensed products. And what I mean by licensed is that they actually have the PA Wilds brand on them, and the PA Wild Center actually collects royalties on those products. So that's a sort of a secondary revenue income stream for the PA Wild Center. And I think what's so key about this is creating a market opportunity for an under-resourced industry sector, which is artisans. Creatives, it's really hard to get them capital. So creating a space for them to sell their products and grow their business is really important. But also what's evolved from that is not only brick and mortar shops, and there are now 3 in the region, but there's also now an online store called Shop the PA Wilds Marketplace, which is essentially an Etsy, but based on a local economy focus. So all the products on the marketplace are from local makers, creatives in the region, and anyone can go on there today and shop and buy their products. But there's also other sort of next step evolution components to this as well. One of which is the Artisan Collaborative. This was sort of the next phase in sort of how do we strengthen the partnerships amongst the businesses and create more B2B relationships. So in this case, we have manufacturers working with artisans to create a new product that they would bring into the market. And the second benefit is that these products will also have the PA Wilds licensed brand on it. So that would be another revenue generating strategy for through the royalty program. So now you have businesses working together, bringing new products into the market, and also the PA Wilds being able to benefit from those sales as well. And they, of course, would sell those products at their gift shops and online marketplace. And the third and final sort of evolution to all this is to create a mobile platform to essentially advance rural tourism economies, which essentially would be a one-stop shop where you would not only buy a product online, but also book your lodging, find a guide, search local restaurants. It would be a place that would be essentially a central hub for how to experience the PA Wilds. Think of sort of Airbnb meets Etsy in a way, but based on a local economy focus. And the goal would be to then not only introduce it into the market in Pennsylvania Wilds, but also encourage other regions across Appalachia to adopt this platform and grow the IP usage throughout the region. Some other sort of ways that the PA Wild Center provides technical assistance and support to their outdoor recreation maker businesses. They've done pitch contests around the outdoors with a grand prize of $50,000. Those were pitch contests around tech innovation, outdoor business-focused industries. One example was the last winner from 2024 created actually an app for guides. So essentially, if you want to find a guide to help you traverse the trails and experience the outdoors, this app is a central hub for finding a local guide in your area. So they've essentially created a platform to promote outdoor guide businesses and encourage folks to use their services to even enhance their experience while they visit the wilds. Another program was called PACE. It was essentially a business accelerator program, so helping businesses sort of grow into their next stage of business focus. And the other sort of big picture business development initiative is called the governance structure or governance plan of the WASP Cooperative. So I touched on earlier, there's this network. It's now 700 members of entrepreneurs, service providers who are sort of working together to strengthen the network across the region. But we also know that we could do better in connecting them not only annually or quarterly, but also within their counties. So we want to create an opportunity for them to do peer-led engagements, meaning they would have their own sort of county chapters. The entrepreneurs would be leading those sessions and facilitate the meetings and encourage them, empower them to really talk to one another, unpack their pain points better, and also continue to do those business-to-business relationships. So working together and helping them to really understand the power of what they can do together and not so much rely solely on the PA Wild Center. So it's sort of to create a sustainability model and where we would train these county, essentially county captains to help facilitate community gatherings amongst their entrepreneurship network and work together to grow their enterprises. And then there will also be a sector component where each sector, so there would be an artisan sector, for example, and that would be a cohort of artisans having meetings, talking to one another, and better understanding, again, their pain points and working together. So that's like sort of the evolved governance structure of the WASP Cooperative Network. And lastly, before I get into some creative funding strategies, I just wanted to touch on sort of the big buckets of funding that help support the PA Wild Center and their work. At the federal level, you have the U.S. Economic Development Administration and the Appalachian Regional Commission. At the state level, you have partners with PA Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and the Pennsylvania Department of Community Economic Development, as well as the PA Council of the Arts. That really helps with that artisan track that I touched on earlier. And the last component is sort of that revenue generating work that helps sustain, is another sustainable revenue stream for the PA Wild Center for Entrepreneurship, the conservation shops, the marketplace, and lastly, the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation. This is a collaboration with the state foundation where when folks go to the gift shops, there's an opportunity for them to donate to the state foundation. And usually that generates around $20,000 a year that the PA Wild Center donates to the Park Foundation, and then they reinvest it into conservation projects, improvements in the state parks across the state. So jumping into creative funding strategies. So some things I wanted to highlight around how are the PA Wilds tackling sort of addressing sort of some of the challenges that come with outdoor recreation businesses. One example is an education income tax credit that's offered at the state level. So essentially the PA Wild Center has built out a program where they're working with outdoor rec businesses that deal with off-season cash flow issues, seasonal issues. So how do you sort of address those challenges? And one way is to they're essentially pairing these tax credits with outdoor businesses who then provide educational programming to students in their community. And so it's both introducing them to different experience of how to camp, how to climb, but also how to run a business. So they sort of try to create an entrepreneurship lens to it, but also exposing children to these outdoor recreation activities and opportunities. Another sort of potential opportunity is around neighborhood assistance tax credits. I think folks are probably familiar with Conservation Corps programs, and one idea is to potentially use some regional collaborations to help stand up maybe a sort of Conservation Corps that helps with trail maintenance and support. There's also examples of folks who've done sort of donation-based crowdfunding at the trailheads themselves with signs that have a QR code to raise money as well. So those are some examples of how the PA Wilds has or can integrate some sort of creative funding strategies to help with business success and also for trail maintenance and so forth. But also with getting back to the businesses, want to touch a bit on crowdfunding. There are several buckets of crowdfunding. There's rewards crowdfunding, which is where someone might donate $5, $10, and they might get a small gift card, or they might get a first opportunity to a kayak ride with a business. So that's sort of one example of that. Another example is donation-based crowdfunding. And in this case, I would just plug an example of this for trail maintenance. A community in Vermont, for example, they did a crowdfunding platform on this software called Patron City, and they raised about $20,000 to repair a footbridge in one of their state park trails. So it could be for businesses, it could be for trail maintenance. There's a lot of different examples of how crowdfunding can be a really good tool to raise capital and bring capital from the outside, not just from your community. And why crowdfunding is so, another impact for crowdfunding is really around how it creates greater resiliency for small businesses and the community at large. There's some really good crowdfunding data recently that came out around how essentially when businesses get crowdfunding lending and dollars, they're more likely to succeed than a business that got traditional lending. And the reason for that is when someone invests in your business, they're going to be your marketing ambassadors. They're the ones who are going to go out and champion your product, your line of work, and encourage other folks to patron your business. So it's really, when people invest in your enterprise, literally with their dollars, they want you to succeed and are going to be there to be your support and your ambassador to support your business. And there's actually a really great local story in the PA Wilds. There was a market village that was launched in 2013, and the project was $6,000 short. And the community came around and rallied and put their own dollars into that village, and it's still there today, and 12 years later. And part of that is because the community was so invested in it, they wanted to succeed, and now it's become a community center for that county. I don't know how we're doing on time. I have maybe 5 more slides, but just want to give 1 or 2 more examples of community investment strategies. A lot of the crowdfunding examples I gave was around not accredited investors, so anyone can invest in those type of enterprises or campaigns. But this example here is around accredited investors, folks who have sort of larger capital funding to put into small business improvements or project improvements. And I just wanted to highlight super quick the Northern Forest Center and their Northern Forest Fund. And why I highlight this is because how it's become sort of a model for how you can, when you invest in sort of these mixed-use projects, how it could be a catalyst for community improvement and vibrancy. So in this case, they were able to raise from the community and other funding sources $3.5 million into a mixed-use project, downtown apartment rentals, and then retail space at the first floor. And I think PA Wild Center CEO Tatiana really sums it up well. Deploying funds to a community project can serve as a spark a community needs to unlock other projects and accelerate growth and community vibrancy. And one great case of that in the PA Wilds is an initiative that was first started by the PA Wild Center in Kane, PA. Kane is a really great example of how you can sort of build a culture around the outdoors. Their branding and tagline is a star in the forest. So they demonstrated how you can really embrace the outdoors as part of your messaging, as part of your community identity. And the PA Wilds Center really leaned into that and invested in their own sort of facility called the PA Wilds Media Lab. That's both their sort of home base for their organization, but also a creative space for folks to do podcasting, photography, and so forth. And then the other component was they actually had a maker, Laughing Owl Press, come in and take over the first floor. So that mixed use component then sparked another investment next door. And finally, you had another enterprise open up down the road called the Sunshine Factory. So you saw a lot of growth happening as one investment sort of sparked another investment and so forth. And it's really created a sense of community vibrancy and activities across the area. I'm not going to go too much into detail in this. I'm happy to share my slide deck with anyone after this session. I'll share my email in a moment, but just some literature reviews that I've done that have really helped me create sort of a checklist on how to cultivate a culture around the outdoors. There's a lot of good things here around that. Happy to share it at the end of this presentation. And then here's my email. I can also drop it in the chat box as well. But yeah, that's sort of my sort of high-level overview of the PA Wild Center and how they sort of integrated the outdoor recreation economy into stewardship and supported entrepreneurs across the region.
Thank you, Mark. Palmer, are we good with holding questions till the end?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Okay, cool. Mark, does that sound good to you as well?
Sounds great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, every time I hear you talk about creative financing strategies, I learn something new. And also you can just hear the passion in your voice for that topic. And also love that slide where you break down PA Wild's funding sources and you have that component about revenue generating resources or services as well. So I think that's so fascinating, and that PA Wilds is really a leader in the organizational sustainability space. So thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right, can y'all see that? Awesome. Well, so yeah, again, my name's Allison. I work with the Made by Mountains partnership out in the western part of the state. And over the next couple of minutes, want to focus on how you can tell your trail story through data and through collaboration. And then also want to uplift a couple of resources that we have here in North Carolina and Western North Carolina for entrepreneurs. And you'll hear an emphasis on resources in Western North Carolina, and I know that this webinar is for folks all across the state. So apologize in advance for that kind of emphasis on the Western part of the state, but following the presentation, would love to hear more about what's going on out East. Would love to learn from you all and hope this sparks some ideas. So just a bit about Made by Mountains. We are an outdoor industry support organization, and we accomplish our mission through three primary buckets of work. So first is growing the outdoor industry, so providing support for outdoor businesses, outdoor entrepreneurs. We work really closely with the Western North Carolina Outdoor Business Alliance. I'll share some additional information about that organization in a couple of slides. And then we also host the Waypoint Accelerator program, and that is an accelerator program designed to connect outdoor businesses, but also provide them with coaching, mentorship, and resources to grow. We also amplify outdoor culture. So if you go to our website, you'll see lots of stories, videos, articles that highlight the movers and shakers here in Western North Carolina's outdoor industry. And then we also host the Building Outdoor Communities program. So I think a couple of folks on this call have probably participated in that program, but BOC, or Building Outdoor Communities, is a 7-month learning program that communities participated in at the county level, and the curriculum covered topics ranging from wayfinding and branding to outdoor recreation infrastructure to destination stewardship, but really focused around growing an outdoor economic development ecosystem. Made by Mountains work is funded by the Appalachian Regional Commission, Dogwood Health Trust, and Mountain BizWorks. So we are actually a program at Mountain BizWorks. So they are our fiscal sponsor, and Mountain BizWorks is a CDFI, or Community Development Financial Institution. So you can think of them almost as a nonprofit bank, and Mountain BizWorks is primarily, like, our core focus there at Mountain BizWorks is lending to entrepreneurs, but also coaching. So learning and lending is key to Mountain BizWorks' mission, and we're really grateful to be under that umbrella of the CDFI because it really lends nicely to an extra layer of support for the outdoor businesses that we interact with. But first, I'm going to kind of take a step back and tell a story about two communities in West Virginia. So this really has nothing at all to do with Made by Mountains. But yeah, I wanted to really share a story of two communities that are leaning into trails as an economic driver, and want to share how collaboration has been so key to them getting their vision off the ground. So the two communities that I'm talking about are Smithers and Montgomery, and they're both located in South Central West Virginia. So if you're familiar with the New River Gorge, these communities technically are a part of the New River Gorge, but are about 30 minutes from that iconic bridge that you might recognize. And historically, coal mining was a dominant industry in this area. There was also the West Virginia Institute of Technology, a entity of higher education that was located in Montgomery, but that entity actually pulled out to another West Virginia town in I think they announced the move in 2016 and maybe moved in around 2018. So a really recent economic shock to have your local college pick up and move 20 miles away. So Smithers and Montgomery are situated on either side of the Kanawha River. So that's the river that you see flowing through the picture. And there were some conceptual designs done around a greenway that would connect Montgomery and Smithers that would be bookended by two riverfront parks. And so with the decline of the coal industry, with the departure of the Institute of Technology, these two communities were really looking towards outdoor recreation to catalyze. And you might remember a few years ago, EDA had a funding opportunity called Travel, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation. And so when these communities learned about that funding opportunity, they really identified with it and thought this could be a way for us to bring these conceptual designs to life. So, as communities do, they started down the path of working with an engineer and cobbling together match. But one of the sometimes mandatory, sometimes optional forms with EDA grant projects is this beautiful little form ED 900B. And so this is a form that applicants can submit that basically attests to jobs created, jobs retained, or private investment generated through an EDA investment. And so, kind of I'll fast forward to the end of the story. These communities ended up being awarded $1.7 million through the Travel, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation Program. And one of the things that set this application apart, I think, is that they had a whole stack of these ED 900B forms that they submitted along with their application. And so what they did was they went to, door to door to local businesses in Smithers and Montgomery, described the infrastructure that they were hoping to build, and then talk to those businesses, would this help you retain one or two jobs here at your local business? Or would this be a way that you could justify, a private investment into your parking lot or something of that nature? And so, yeah, truly, there was a stack of these forms that were scanned in and submitted with this application. And I guarantee that that was a part of what made this application a winning one in a very rural area of West Virginia, is the level of collaboration and buy-in that was articulated by the stack of ED 900Bs. So grant forms, not really fun, not sexy, not exciting, but they really can tell a story, and that level of collaboration can really set a community apart. So, kind of switching gears back into Made by Mountains in Western North Carolina, we know that trails create economic impact. I think there are so many different data points that I could share out. And like some of these that I have in here, Rails to Trails Conservancy had a study that said that the trails save 20 billion health cost savings annually. That number's probably even higher at this point. So we know anecdotally, when we look around and we go to ribbon cuttings for projects like the Acoustic Trail, we know the economic impact that these trails are generating as we see local businesses start to pop up along trail corridors. Within the Made by Mountains team, we've started to talk about greenways and other trails as commerce corridors because of the local businesses that often flock and start to grow adjacent to trail networks. And while Made by Mountains, we could definitely are not taking any kind of responsibility for the Acoustic Trail here. We were present at the ribbon cutting, and I was personally just so impressed by the engagement of local businesses. And if you go to the Acoustic Trail website, some of the trail maps even point to local businesses adjacent. So a really great example of a new trail that's already generating such economic impact. Wanted to highlight a resource, the Western North Carolina Outdoor Recreation Participation Survey. So this is landmark data that Appalachian State published about a year ago. At this point, there were award-winning economists that surveyed visitors to Western North Carolina and found that our region's outdoor recreation industry is a $4.9 billion industry supporting 48,000 full-time jobs. And so if you go to the Made by Mountains website, we actually have this level of data broken down for the 25 westernmost counties in North Carolina. So I want to highlight that resource to you all if you are in one of those 25 westernmost states. And we have some funding applications in now. We actually, we know that this is great baseline data, and now we're excited to hopefully be able to update this information every 2 or 3 years. Want to highlight 2 tools that the team at Appalachian State developed. These are the benefit cost analysis tool and the economic impact calculator. So those are hot links. If you click them, they'll go to Made by Mountains YouTube channel, where the economists John Whitehead and Ash Morgan actually do a breakdown of how to use the benefit cost analysis tool and economic impact calculator. And so I'm not going to go into too much depth here because they cover it in the YouTube videos, but the purpose of those tools is for you to be able to plug in a potential investment that your municipality or your county or your organization is thinking about making in terms of outdoor recreation infrastructure, and it can help estimate maintenance costs and really be able to tell that data-driven story of the impact of that investment. Similarly, the economic impact calculator looks at revenue generated via trip. And so if you are anticipating that investing in a new park alongside your like Greenway or Blueway would generate 1,000 new trips a year, you can plug those 1,000 trips into the economic impact calculator, and it will help generate that economic impact. So again, really with both of these tools and the WNC outdoor recreation participation data, we want to arm you with the resources needed to tell that data-driven story. All right, so want to highlight, moving kind of from collaboration, telling your story through data, to assuming that you do secure funding for that recreation infrastructure project, how do we then activate entrepreneurs within that community or within that region? And so want to highlight the Waypoint Resilience Program. This is a program housed out of Mountain BizWorks and Made by Mountains. You can click the orange logo and it will take you to an article that tells you a little bit more about the program and each of the 20 businesses that are participating. But Waypoint Resilience is designed for outdoor entrepreneurs that are rebuilding financially, maybe even physically, from the impacts of Hurricane Helene. So 20 businesses in this cohort. Thanks to funding from the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, all participating businesses receive a $5,000 grant to help their recovery. And there are companies ranging from manufacturers to tour operators to service providers. A nonprofit, Mount True, is actually also in the cohort. So really, diverse representation of outdoor industry entrepreneurs. And I also want to say this is not the first time that Made by Mountains has hosted Waypoint. I think this is like the 5th or 6th version or time that the program has been hosted. This time it is updated, with that resilience lens. But, this is a tool in the toolbox for Western North Carolina outdoor businesses, is the Waypoint program. Similarly, really want to make a plug for the Outdoor Business Alliance of Western North Carolina. This organization began back in 2013. It was founded by gear manufacturers initially, and today is over 160 members strong. It's comprised today of gear builders, outfitters, tour operators, and nonprofit organizations. And Made by Mountains and the OBA really do kind of work hand in hand. And if you're not a member and you're in the western part of the state and you're thinking about joining, membership is quite affordable. Generally speaking, it's $100 a year for individuals. And then membership, if you're a business or an organization, is on a sliding scale that corresponds to revenue. But OBA hosts really frequent social opportunities for outdoor industry entrepreneurs and business owners to connect with one another. There are, I want to say, monthly roundtable conversations that dive into particular topics that outdoor businesses are wanting to cover. And then also OBA hosts the annual Get in Gear Fest, and that's what these pictures are showing here. It's an opportunity, it's a festival every spring to highlight the makers and the builders of Western North Carolina. So, I see someone repping the Sylvan Sport hat in the photo on the left, and then Light Heart Gear on the right. So if you haven't been before, it's a really great time. I also, I'm excited to share that there was a grant submitted. We are not sure about funding yet, but there was a grant submitted to expand the Outdoor Business Alliance into 3 new regions of Western North Carolina through the ARC Ready Grants to Grow program. And so I think it's fair to say, I know this is being recorded, but that there is like a center of gravity within the Asheville area. And so this grant would really provide some new energy and new support for 3 regions outside of the Asheville area, the Smokies region, High Country region, and then out in the Hickory area. So fingers crossed that that grant pulls through and that we're able to expand the reach of the Outdoor Business Alliance. All right, and then we are 1 month away from the 6th annual Outdoor Economy Conference. This is the nation's largest outdoor recreation gathering that focuses on economic development, bringing in over 600 attendees, 50 plus speakers. And there are a lot of great sessions, 2 that come to mind to me that kind of build on some of the content covered today. The National Forest Foundation is doing a 3-hour workshop on creative financing strategies. And then if you are interested in learning more about the Economic Recovery Corps and other projects that fellows are working on across the United States, there will be a fellow panel as well. So totally encourage you, click that photo, go to the website, peruse the sessions. So many great excursions as well. Like, what conference can you go to and learn about creative financing strategies and go whitewater rafting and go to a film festival? And it's just going to be fantastic. So if you all have any questions about OEC, do not hesitate to reach out. Similarly, with any of the content that was covered today, would love to connect and share more. My email is allison@madebymountains.com. You can also find our organization on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. But thank you all.
Thank you, Allison and Marc. This was really interesting, and I do I'll put a plug in for their conference. It really is a great convening of all kinds of people across the sector. So I do encourage y'all to check it out if you can make it. So are there any questions for them? We only have about 10 minutes left before the hour ends, but would love to hear some questions or your thoughts. Maybe you have an experience to share in your own area or a problem you're trying to solve.
I know there were a couple of questions for Mark in the chat that you said you'd maybe expand on a little bit with working with young people and the connection to workforce development.
For either of us, or
I think it was for you.
okay. Yeah, I saw Kate's note.
Yeah.
So conservation corps programs, and I'll be candid, I'm familiar with some kind of core programs. You know, in Philadelphia, there's a program called Power Corps, which essentially tries to bring in youth and folks who are trying to re-enter the marketplace and create sort of a pipeline and pathway for them to get the training that they need to become maybe introduced to union jobs, for example, in carpentry and so forth. But the Power Corps program in Philadelphia, they essentially are tasked to like work in trail maintenance and sort of water protection initiatives in and around the city. In terms of the conservation corps program at large, you know, in terms of there's basically, I think, an opportunity to leverage tax credits, other funding to engage, you know, different constituencies, younger folks to learn the trades and then eventually graduate into careers. I think a great example, I think Meredith Hill's actually on the call. DCNR has a great collaboration with the Conservation Corps program in the state, and they work with the students to get trail experience, get trail management experience, and then they essentially try to graduate into actual state park jobs at the state level. So I think that's one great example of how to sort of create a pipeline around youth engagement and then graduating into an actual career in trail maintenance. Meredith, I saw you're on the call. If you want to speak to that, happy to popcorn it over to you.
No, I would just say it's been a fantastic program for us. In fact, we now have been operating it for at least about 5 years. And this year we just were able to transition some of those young people into full-time jobs, about 60 jobs that are filled with people that are coming up through this Pennsylvania Outdoor Corps program. It's been great.
Thanks, Meredith. And Meredith runs the Conservation Landscape Program and represents the PA Wilds and works closely with the PA Wild Center and their team.
Thanks, Mark. I've got a quick question. I'm wondering maybe for both of you, like, what key ingredients had to sort of be in the mix to see the greatest success in some of your example stories?
What comes to mind initially for me is, from the community perspective, just unrelenting persistence. So in the Smithers and Montgomery example, so those communities sit between two counties, and when the funding opportunity opened, you know, both municipalities are rural, they are small. They started to, you know, I shouldn't say started to, they continue to attend county commission meetings, you know, lobbying their commissioners for support, whether that was, you know, simply a letter of support or, you know, from one county, they ultimately secured match funding, but just at every turn, taking the opportunity to hold up a megaphone to their work, you know, from partners ranging from the local CVB to the USDA state director came down. I mean, they just were such great cheerleaders for the work that they were doing and never thought that it was too small to share. And really that is what led to, I think, the success of that project was just the level of collaboration and buy-in around it.
Partnerships and persistence. Got it.
Yes, which Great Trail State is great at doing.
Yeah, I would echo what Allison shared. I mean, I think relationship building is so key and collaboration is so pivotal. I mean, I think bringing in different partners across different sectors, nonprofit, for-profit, and also I think meeting entrepreneurs where they are and creating opportunities for them to talk about their challenges and issues, and responding to them accordingly. I think that's been probably one of the biggest things is whether it's going into their actual Main Street business or into even their home. I think it's really trying to meet them where they are and try to understand their needs and then build programming around that. I think it's been really critical to how, and I think also, I never hate to put it on the spot again, but I think the state collaboration too, and creating that infrastructure, having DCNR and the community economic development folks at the state level, PA Council of the Arts, everyone sort of working together and helping to support the work at the region and county levels, I think has been huge. And I think also creating a sort of agreement, if you will, a local, in the PA Wild, it's called a local council of government. And every county sort of agreed to have their county planner be part of an ongoing engagement around the challenges and needs in the region. And so they meet regularly, they have different projects they work on. And their work is really around trying to continue the work beyond just having these one-time moments. So that's been really critical in continuing the momentum.
I love hearing about the governance structures that are put into place to kind of sustain these kinds of collaborations. I had a question about, obviously, you all have created such an amazing amount of impact for the regions that you're working in, and wondered if the EDA fellows are going to continue and if there'll be another kind of round of another cohort, and if you know if that will continue.
So yeah, I'll share. So there is no like locked in source of funding to continue the program. So this was a one-time appropriation. But that being said, I know that there are fundraising committees and committees that focus on communications that are seeking ways to diversify funding for this program because they recognize the value. There was a recent article that was published by the Brookings Institute that started to cite some of the early impacts of the program, and it really is phenomenal. So whether it is funded by the EDA in the future or is, partially funded by other sources, maybe private sources, yeah, hopeful that it continues in some iteration. But Mark, would you have anything to add to that? Or Caitlin is another fellow also on the call.
Yeah, I saw Laura too. No, nothing really to add. I definitely think they would love to continue this work. And so I think they're definitely exploring that. There's nothing definitive about whether there will be a second cohort, but they see the impact. Alison touched on the article on Brookings. I think there's just a lot of momentum here. So how do we grow and sustain that and have another cohort is definitely of interest, but nothing definitive at this time.
And I'll jump on board too. Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm the ERC fellow stationed in Eastern North Carolina, and I'm helping out Beaufort County right now with some outdoor rec and strategic planning. But we still have another like 17 or so months in our contract, or in some of our contracts for this fellowship. So the next cohort, if we can go ahead and gain funding, will not be until 2028 or 2029. Well, thank you all so much for the work you're doing. It's so impactful, and it brings everything together. Trails are part of a larger ecosystem. So I appreciate the attention today on all of that. And are there any other comments or questions for our panel, our speakers today? If not, we can give you back a few minutes of your lunch hour. Thank you all so much on behalf of the Great Trail State Coalition, and best of luck to you.
Thank you for having us.